This is Dr. David Shine, and welcome to Business Law 101. It's the United Nations Convention on Contracts for International Sale of Goods. We refer to this in the business world as CISG. The easiest way to think of CISG is that this is the international version of our Uniform Commercial Code on Sales, Article 2 and 2A. There are some significant differences, and we'll be touching on them in this chapter and the following chapters. Now, as we wrap up chapter 21, one of the situations we get into is the application of the CISG. And so this is again from the UN, and the CISG applies to countries, the parties to the contract have ratified it. Many members of the United Nations obviously have adopted the CISG, but not all of them. Now, an important caveat here, which may not be obvious to you, is the CISG only applies to non-consumer contracts for the sale of goods. So this is going to be merchant-oriented. A good rule of thumb is if you're in the CISG, you're doing international transactions, the CISG frequently is more similar to common law than the code. Nothing is more vivid in that distinction than this first bullet. The CISG is guided by the mirror image rule. Remember, common law, mirror image rule. The situation, if you're not here, you're under the code, the domestic U.S. Uniform Commercial Code. No such thing as the mirror image rule, and we just said this a few minutes ago. So this is why that's important, because it is a significant distinction between the code and the CISG. Even though the code works to expedite trade among the states, this operation leads across the world. So it's a little bit different, but again, it is a little bit confusing, unfortunately, and the best I can say is just kind of read through this and kind of work out those distinctions. Now, rather interestingly, the CISG does not follow the statute of frauds. The CISG declares that a contract does not have to be in writing to be enforceable, and consideration is not required to modify or terminate a contract. Again, recall that at common law, you must have consideration to modify the contract. So this is significant because it's more similar to the code in this one provision right here, bullet number 3, because consideration is not required to modify or terminate the contract. Remember, we just talked about this a couple slides back, and we said, if you're under the code, you do not have to have consideration to make changes. But again, CISG agrees with the UCC, although many other provisions, such as the two above, it's common law enforcement. This is Dr. David D. Shine for Business Law 101. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite platform.